Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this March 24th, 2022 meeting of the Finance Committee. Tonight we'll be following the published and posted agenda. First on our agenda this evening is approval of minutes from March 17th, 2022. Is that all the committee members have a chance to review the minutes?
I'm sorry, I didn't read them, but I can abstain.
Okay.
I was going to say the same thing. Apologies.
Okay. We have, let me just check the count left. I think we still have 4 that have reviewed. Sam, Eric, I'm sorry, Eric, you said you did not. Sam, Dave, Anita, did you have a chance to review? You did. Okay. So can I have a motion?
So move to approve the minutes.
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So, and then Eric and Kathy are abstaining and John is absent. Just for the record, Pam. Next on our agenda this evening is a review of the fiscal year 23 budget for the library. With us this evening, we have Becky Herman, our library director. We also have David Roslau, who is a member of the Board of Trustees for the library. Good evening.
Good evening. I had to unmute myself. We're all getting good at that, right? I wish that we could. I wish we could meet in person, but I think we're all sort of familiar with this format at this point. So it's a little like the Brady Bunch, but this year's budget is presented as Jim. You're going to share the actual numbers, or do you want to do the overall comments?
Would you rather do the comments or budget first? Either one's fine.
Well, I can talk, and you can show the numbers if that makes it easier for people.
Sure. Either way is fine, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to summarize rather than read through my budget comments exactly. So
okay, sure, I'll put the numbers up.
Yeah. As I said, this year's library budget is presented as a level service budget. It's been that way, I think, for the last 20 years. And the difference with this budget is that it doesn't include the union negotiations. They are still have not settled their contract, so the personnel numbers does not include any COLA or any step raises that have to do with, well, it has some step raises, but not the COLA that would be applied to the library union. So that overall budget increase is a 3.7% without the union settlement. One of the things I like to remind everybody of each year is that the library is a little bit different from other municipal departments in that we have state requirements. So the FY23 budget request, funds us at that state certification threshold. And in order to qualify for a state aid award, which has actually gone up this year, the state aid allocations has increased the last 2 years during COVID time. So we're actually getting more like $60,000 this coming year. And to be certified in Massachusetts, we have to meet a couple of requirements. One is that we have to maintain a budget that's an average of the last 3 years budgets plus 2.5%. We have to have a book budget that's 13% of our library budget. And then we also have to be open a minimum amount of hours. In our case, it's 59 hours. And then we also have to have a certified library director with a master's in library science. And that's many of us on staff, but I'm the official certified one. It's important for us to stay certified because it means that we're able to actually do interlibrary loan, and a lot of our materials come from other libraries, and we belong to a consortium, and that's the way that we participate. And if we were decertified, then we would lose our privileges to borrow throughout the state. So that's a critical service that we want to make sure that we continue to provide. As I said, the personnel budget is an increase of 3.8%. We have differences in our budget in that we do an evening shift differential, and we have Sunday hours that are from mid-October to mid-May. And then we have step raises and longevity bonuses and things that are included there. We also use our budget to pay overtime for our custodians when they do work on the weekends and during the summer. And they do a lot of that handyman stuff like periodic maintenance on the lawn, in the greenway. They do shampoo rugs and furniture. They wax the terrazzo floors and strip it. We do a lot of interior painting and try to maintain the library at a level that where it looks pretty good for 22 years or so that it is. So where we see the biggest increase is, it's a modest increase of about $10,000 in the general expenses line. And that is still a result of the pandemic planning that we've had to do. It's mainly our electricity line has a big part to do with that. And we talked about this last year, and it still holds, that we reprogrammed our HVAC system to run more frequently and to allow increased airflow. And the outside air exchanges also continues to result, in that increase in electricity. We're also running air purifiers in a lot of the smaller rooms, and so that is really just bumped that up. It's not so much that we do have solar credits that we're able to apply, and we are still seeing that, but it's just that the prices, the expenses themselves have increased. So that's where we're going to see a bump in it. I also have asked for an increase in the materials budget, which is, and that is partly because during the pandemic, we had so many people that discovered all of our online resources and downloadable ebooks and audios and movies and music. And so the state is, MVLC, our consortium that we belong to, is actually increasing our fees for that, because they want to really increase the holdings that are available throughout the consortium. So I have asked for an increase of $15,000 there to help offset that. And I think it's just important also to mention at this time that, in addition to the municipal budget that we get, that we really do depend on other pots of money to do operational and programming expenses. And that includes state aid, as I mentioned before. We spent about $18,000 so far this year on things related to the building. We've also used money from our donations that go towards our materials budget. We have our friends at the library who are amazing and wonderful and have raised money for us, and they gift us in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000 each year that we use towards programming and equipment and other special projects. And so we are just really blessed that, an additional probably $60,000 each year or so comes from other resources rather than the municipal budget. So we are, have been not so fortunate this year to have our volunteer force because of COVID, but we are slowly seeing our volunteers come back now. And we're able to, because of the changing in the masking and the numbers thankfully going down, we're really looking forward to starting to do more of our in-person programming. And while we've had great success, and I had included some of those graphics that talks about the virtual programming that we did, we've had great success over the last couple of years. We are really, looking forward to a return to a more near normal and being able to see people in person. So I think it's a pretty straightforward budget. David, is there anything you wanted to chime in on and add?
No, I think you hit all the high points.
So questions, comments, concerns?
Any questions?
Just more of a clarification. I think I heard you say, and I know that the budget memo reads that personnel increased by 3.8, but the spreadsheet actually has it at 2.5, which I think is the right number. So I don't know if the percentage is wrong in the memo.
It's very possible, and I will double check those numbers and make sure that the spreadsheet is the right numbers.
Okay.
I did have a question actually for Paul about the electricity.
Yes.
Paul, could you touch base on how the the credits we get for electricity, how does that get applied to the various departments? If you could just give us a thumbnail view on how that works.
I'm the one who can give the best answer and accurate is Darlene, because she does it and she's on the call tonight. So I'm going to bring her in from remote. And Darlene, do you want to just explain how we handle the solar credits?
Yep.
Here we go.
Yep. So we actually get an invoice from our solar company, which is Cpc. We have a schedule with them. It's called the Schedule Z, and listed on the Schedule Z is all of the accounts that we have with National Grid. In those is applied percentages to each department. Each account number has a percentage. Basically, we really went through, it's kind of the amount of square footage that are at each building that we've taken a look at to each one of these accounts. So what happens is Cpc sends us an invoice monthly for each National Grid account and we get credits on those. And what I do every month is the departments, I charge the departments these amounts or these I charge back these credits to the accounts. So they actually still see a National Grid bill, but it's much less than what they would normally see because of the credits. So you see a National Grid bill, but then your Cpc credits offset the cost. And that's really just how it is. So I actually go through every month. The departments don't actually see this bill. It actually comes in a large spreadsheet from Cpc, and I go through and charge the departments for those credits. So that's really how it works. It's just they basically offset the solar that we have against the National Grid bills is how it works. Does that make sense?
It does. And
we are seeing some use, there are some Becky's absolutely right. We're actually seeing that not even at the library, but we're seeing it kind of across the boards. People are running more electricity because we do have almost every office now has an airflow machine in their office. I know even in my office, I have one in my personal office. I have two out in our in my office area out where a payroll and accounting is being processed. So all of the offices are having these machines too. So through where I'm seeing a lot of the departments having these machines and using more airflow, we are noticing that the cost of the use, I shouldn't say it's the cost because we sent a contract with our electricity, but what we're seeing is the higher usage of electricity. So even though we're getting credits, the usage with National Grid is higher than what we've seen in the past couple of years.
Do the credits remain stable, or is that increasing because we're doing better?
Well, it fluctuates. It's not. It fluctuates. I'm going to tell you. I actually saw a larger credit come through this month in the month of March than I actually did in February. So it's really how solar is doing. It's really basically how it is. Are we getting sun out there? Or it's really how's the solar performing is really where we see how we get those credits. Are we generating the solar is what it is to get those credits. So we I'm thinking if you take an average over the course of the year, I don't think I did kind of look at Becky's just to see how her solar credits were. So I wanted to see if she was paying, if her solar credits were declining, but they're really not. It's just what we're seeing, we're in the winter months, we see less of the solar credits than we do when we start getting into the spring and summer months.
Thank you, darling.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? All right. Hearing
Could I?
Oh, certainly.
No, I just if there are no more questions, I just wanted to take the opportunity to, normally when I used to come, I used to bring you the one book, Chelmsford book, and I just want to invite you to come down to the library and pick up a copy. We're once again celebrating it. We've been doing this community-wide reading program since 2007. And, as people know, we encourage all residents to read a selected title and then attend the programming that's related to the book. And we get free copies of the books that are provided by the Friends of the Library. This year's, the title is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. He was a finalist for the National Book Award in 2019. And it was chosen by the Washington Post as one of its 10 top books of the year. It's his first novel. He's a poet otherwise, and he's writing about the experience of Vietnamese American immigrants and, what it's like to move and grow up in New England. So he's from Northampton, Mass, and we're not going to get him here in person, but we are going to have him for a virtual event on May 26th. And we're going to have a local professor, Sandra Lim of UMass Lowell, who is also a poet in her right and a Guggenheim fellow, and she's going to come and interview him. So I think that's going to be really an exciting and interesting program. So I just want to invite people to look out for that and to join us if you can.
All right. Well, that sounds very, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you for your services to the town. I'd like to thank you, Becky, and you, David, for being here this evening, and wish you a good year.
Well, thank you. I may stay and listen to Linda's presentation because it has to do with our branch library. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda this evening is a review of the fiscal year 23 budget for the Department of Public Works, Stormwater, Sewer Division, Solid Waste Recycling Facilities. And with us this evening is our Director of Public Works, Gary Persichetti.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Once again, following Becky, she is very correct in saying that we are level funded again and have been that way for over a decade anyway. So you'll find the budgets to be very simple with very little changes to them. The biggest change that we have are in a few categories. One is we now have all of our employees but 3 all under the non-union. So we've had our last one, which was the highway division, switch over just recently. So pretty much every figure's in here but 3 clerical people. So there's not much that would have to be added at all when the time comes. So we'll start with admin and engineering. Very little changes to that. The big change you're going to see across the board in every division is going to be in gas and diesel. And this one, you'll see the gas went from 3,500 to 5,250. I think everyone's aware of what's happening at the pumps, what's going to continue to happen with that as time goes on. I know it's dropped slightly, but there's no indication that it's going to stay that way. So we have allocated that to the budgets, and looking at what's left for this year, it'll be tight, but we should be able to cover that. So other than that, I really don't have any changes to that. Public trees again, we're at 75,000, which is pretty standard. Then we go down to the highway division. In the highway division, as I said, we are all set in the personnel line because everybody is now in there this year, where we're usually waiting on the 3rd year for a contract to be settled. So when you get down into expenses, you'll basically see the same thing. The other issue that you're looking at, the big one, is we have Bolton, the solar from Bolton at it's $750 a month, so that's up to 68,000, and that's based on actuals. And then vehicle maintenance, due to the fact that some vehicles are getting older and the increase in parts, especially anything right now that's made out of oil-based products like rubber and some brake lining stuff have gone up, so you'll see an increase in there. Once again, let's go to gas, and you'll see gasoline went from 24 to 36,000, and you'll see diesel is up from 70 to 84. Other than that, we're pretty much staying pretty close to level funded. Snow and ice. Once again, snow and ice, and I think we reported this at last year's, that if we would have the exact same winter as last year, we would spend about $96,000 more on salt than we did last year, based on a rise in the price that came out for this fiscal year. So you'll see that that's what you're looking at there. Parks division, very simple budget. It's a person and a half. Very small increases. Again, you're going to have some in electricity. You have it in. We actually went down on vehicle maintenance based on last year, in the fact that we are expecting a truck that is still being delayed. That was a last year's capital that should be coming in. It's going to be over 12, probably 14 months from the day of order, which is showing people that things are not even close to being normal on that anymore. And then again, they had 2,600 in their line item, and we raised that to 3,000 for gas. Public buildings. Public buildings, again, it has two part-time people at night. There's been a switch in the people as well. So you'll see a decrease in the labor force there. Electricity stayed the same there. Gas, heat. You'll see building maintenance is up a bit. As well as vehicle maintenance. We do take care of the vehicles that are considered pool cars. The biggest change you're gonna see in that line item right now is you're gonna see the contract custodial services has dropped. And the reason why it has dropped by the $7,000 is since the switch in COVID, we are not doing the extra cleaning during the day that was being done, throughout the probably 16 months of most critical part of that. And then we're carrying the same 30,000 that we split between the Old North and the CCA. That, of course, ours was always for elevator repairs and elevator inspections, fire alarm inspections, sprinkler tests, all of that runs under us. Street lighting, we are looking for an increase in street lighting, and that is due to the price of the parts that we are buying when we have to go up and change street lights. And the other thing that happens to us occasionally is when someone hits a pole, 99% of the time we get the word from National Grid and they either leave it at the base. Lately, we've been having them drop off here, but occasionally, I don't know if they get damaged and get picked up during the cleanup, but we have, in some cases, had to go with new ones. Waste. Waste is what it is. I know we had the same discussion last year. Right now, there's not much power for our consortium that we're in to leverage much in that department because of the transfer stations and what's going on. So these figures are pretty solid to what is out there. Municipal facilities. Again, you'll see that they're pretty much, all of their salaries are in there and ready to go. Building maintenance stayed the same. We have increase in the equipment repair, and that's definitely parts and equipment cost. I believe we've told you some of the stories when we came to you to ask for the $240,000 to change the boilers at the Byam School. I believe we told you at that point that the AirCo boilers that we have been using have had many increases in parts, and we have outspent our normal usage of that. And so for two reasons, we've looked at a different boiler, which we did do, which is still 95% full, condensing and modulating, which are now at the Byam. And on our capital is the request this year for the high school, and we will follow that theme again. And they take a little less maintenance and parts every year. So that'll cut that back. Again, gas, they don't use much diesel, but it comes out of us anyway, but their gas line has increased. And again, we're going up another $5,000 in grounds maintenance. The issue with grounds maintenance, of course, is everything we're dealing with for fields and all the stuff that needs to be done continue to be played hard and continue to just get older, just like everything else does. So sometimes you're trying to regenerate new grass and spots. So we want to keep up with that. And that's basically the DPW budget. So now we can get into the sewer enterprise and then the stormwater.
Could I ask you just one quick question?
Of course you can. Anything you like.
I just wanted to circle back to the salt budget. How are we doing this year on expenditure of
I want to say we're under 100,000 left at this point for the year. And we still have to do some work on some vehicles that still have some issues. The issues with those right now is it's parts. They're coming in very delayed. We're chasing to the point where sometimes we'll actually drive a little further and get it because you're not going to be able to get it local. So
okay.
We should meet the budget. I mean, unless we get some really major stuff, which I don't think anyone's expecting. I don't believe we'll go over, but it's been tight. Sorry, Jim.
Thank you.
Yep. You want me to continue or any other questions?
That was it for me.
Thank you.
Any other
Yep.
on the public works portion? All right. Sewer.
Sewer enterprise, okay? Again, all the salaries are within sewer enterprise. You start running down the lines, you'll see major maintenance, okay? And that's a Fair Pump Station. It's similar to Lord and Vincent. There was a cost. That's the major maintenance for this year that will take place. Will be at that station. Other than that, you're not seeing much in increases until you get down to the low user fee is staying the same, which is good for this coming year. And the debt service, as you can see, is up to 170 from 141, and that's the new Hvac truck that was on the capital that was purchased. And then the two administrative other charges is the over that gets, John gives us those numbers every year that we put in. So as you know, these two divisions keep up with that cost right along. So the town's not chasing that later on. Any questions before I go to stormwater?
All right. I'm not hearing any. Let's move along to stormwater.
Okay, stormwater as well. All the salaries are in there. We have contracted services is based on last actuals. We lowered that by 10,000. You'll see that the gasoline is up, which we expected in that division as well, like everybody else. Again, you'll see that their debt services is staying just about the same, which is good. And then you have their other charges, which are the two, again, the ones that John set with Joyce, giving us the over stuff. So again, this budget goes down a little bit. And basically, that's all of them.
All right.
Any other questions? I'll be more than happy to answer.
All right. I'm not seeing any.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'll hold on for just a second because we
I'm not going anywhere.
review of a warrant article on the agenda.
Yep,
11, some basketball courts.
Yep, I know I'm still here. Okay, Chelmsford High School complex of 6 tennis courts, 3 basketball, and 2 hockey right now has been on the capital plan for over a decade. Unfortunately, with the price tag that it does carry, it seems to be one that gets moved out. I think it's for many reasons. I think the school department itself finds it kind of hard to drop that much money in one pool because it doesn't leave much for any other school during that particular year if you were to do it. So what's going on over the basically the whole time, but more over the past 5 years, is we've increased in the amount of money we have been spending there just to keep it playable enough for the high school tennis every year and the summer programs that are going on at the basketball courts. And so the increase in that has been great. It's really at the point now where you're throwing away money because it's not lasting and it's not really doing much for you anymore. So we would like to tackle this project and put it behind us and get that whole complex redone. The price tag is $1.4 million. The only changes to that is we will be adding some we are not now, I'm sorry. We will be rebuilding that. Lights will go back, which were there a long time ago, but over the years has marginalized between rotting of poles, rotting of wires underneath. So they were removed and were not put back, but we have the opportunity to do that. So we're hoping to do that. So that would be the only change. The complex would basically look as you're seeing it now, but just completely blown up and redone brand new.
Gary,
Yes,
I want to commend you for bringing this project forward. I went on the capital committee for the first time, and everything, it just stood out as a project that was going to be very difficult to get improved, along with all the other demands for the money that was available. And this is something that really needs to get done. And I just commend you for stepping forward and proposing that we do this. You certainly have my support.
thank you, and I appreciate it, and I do want to commend the town manager because he is the one that has to find the funds from another avenue, and of course, that's a hard thing to do, as we all know, when you're not trying to raise taxes for anyone. So once again, he's been able to generate it through, debt services that are dropping off. So I'll thank Paul to help us with that, and I hope this gets through town meeting. We get to do it.
Then thank you to Paul as well.
Well, I don't want to omit John Souza, who's really the one driving behind me, who's saying, hey, look, we got to deal with this because of the cost. Gary, you also want to talk about the work we do at McCarthy with those tennis courts, which is part of what brought the number from 1.2 to 1.4 million?
Yeah. Actually, the tennis courts at McCarthy are way past their life. We have not been able to honestly keep up with them. There's been an issue there now for probably a good 10 years, but the last 3 years have been really trying on the police department with their parking, especially with their beautiful room that is used by all for training and for other purposes. So the tennis courts will be removed. We are going to be adding parking. The parking will come right off the existing lot. You're looking at it at the right that exists of spaces now. Thank you very much. And it'll come right across straight all the way to where the island is. And we'll be making all parking there. What's going to happen is there'll be a fence that follows the fence that's along the roadway now in between the school and the police station. And it'll come around, and there'll be a set of gates at the other exit of the new parking lot. That's so during the day, no one from the police station or anyone trying to drive through there can get into the school property, which is what we do at every school during school hours. And then at night, at weekends, and of course, when football's in season there for Pop Warner, they get to utilize all them spaces, which is a big win-win for that.
All right, any questions? And that's just a rudimentary drawing I added. So just
we actually have an official one, but it just came in, so I didn't have it at the time to share it, but we've had the work done on it to find out how, what it's going to look like and what we're able to do.
Gary, is so the one, like, so basically four tennis courts are going away in the space of the last two at the top. Is that going to become like pickleball or something, or is that entire?
Well, should I be talking, Paul?
Let me just say this, Kathy. Jay Lang's on the call on this meeting, as well as is Gary. We are pursuing a privately funded, meaning donation funded pickleball facility for that location. We hope that perhaps within the next few weeks, we may have a proposal to bring forth to the Finance Committee, the Select Board, on this. So that's in the works, and we're hopeful and optimistic. We've shared the concept also with Chief Spinney, since he would be in the butter to it, and it looks promising. So we're pursuing that with the cooperation again of Jay Lang from the school department, because it is school property, and we're working. We have a preliminary illustrative drawing, and again, we're hopeful that within the next few weeks we'll be able to bring something forward and hopefully have something put in by the end of the, at least have something moving forward, within the next several months. So,
Thank you.
now, if I recall from a couple of weeks ago, Paul, you had mentioned that in doing that, the skating park may have to be relocated. Do we know?
As of the recent thing, we think we can leave the skate park right there.
Okay.
So that would avoid an additional expense. It looks like we'd be able to get the facility in where the upper 4 tennis courts are, and then have the parking for the police and the school activities that Gary just noted. And the consideration is a indoor-outdoor pickleball facility. So just in the meaning that some of the courts would be interior and some would be exterior. So that's how ambitious this donor is that we're considering. And basically, they would provide the construction costs, and the town would basically be responsible for the facility after it's constructed.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding Article 11? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, moving right along in the agenda. We have a review of fiscal year 23 budget for the Community Preservation Fund. And with us this evening, we have Linda Prescott from the Community Preservation Committee. We also have with us this evening, and she's spoken previously, Darlene Lucier, our town accountant, who will be able to give us a little bit of update on the CPC funds, especially for the regular annual warrant article. And then we can go in the next portion of it, a review of Articles 25 through 37, which were all the requests that were approved by the CPC for fund usage this year. So with that, I will go and share the budget. Okay. Good evening, Linda. Good evening, Darlene.
Good evening. I'll just speak to this a little bit just before we get in. This is where we are currently in the fiscal 22 budget. I think we've seen this the spreadsheet before. The top half is the current projects and where we are to date expended. The only new project that is on here is the 255 Princeton Street project that was approved at the special town meeting in February for David Henderson. You'll see there that there's $1,235,000. I just want to clarify. I think there was a little bit. I think Kathy Duffett might had some questions regarding this. $600,000 was approved from the CPC reserve account. And then $635,000 is coming from the Affordable Housing Stabilization Fund. So what John Souza did was what we decided to do is transfer the funds from the stabilization fund into this. And I'm going to actually manage the whole project under CPC. So the funding here, there's two sources of funding. There's CPC funding, and then there's the Affordable Housing Stabilization Funding, which makes up that $1,235,000. So I just want to clarify that because I think there were some questions about what was approved and why was there only a portion is CPC and the other balance was coming from that stabilization fund. So but I'm going to manage the project actually through the CPC. With David Henderson on that. But these are the balances in the projects where we are to date. We still, basically, most of these are all going to be debt payments. Your Chelmsford Woods and your Warren Poles, all of those projects are complete. The balances in there are going to be the debt that we're going to be paying through June 30th. So there's really the only projects that we have, we still have money in that we would be doing is capital improvement, recreational capital improvement. There's a little bit of, we have the funding for the Varney and Southwell Playground that will be done in the springtime. We still have the facade project there. I do have to circle back with Evan Belansky and find out where we're at with that facade program. And if anybody's interested in that, we have $100,000 there in that project, and no one yet has come forward to claim any of those fundings to get that facade program done. So I'll circle back with him and see where we're at with that. And then we still have the preservations of records that Trish is working on and getting those all of those books and vaultings and stuff done for the preservation of our records with the town clerk's office.
Darlene, can I ask you one quick question about the facade program?
Yeah.
Do you know how many years ago we voted that in? I mean, it seems like it's not just.
That was 3 years ago. So I want to, circle back, and he knew it was going to take a little bit to talk to some of the owners down there. And then I know they were going to be talking with the North Chelmsford, the Village Square group down there to see if there was any building owners that were interested in it, but I haven't heard anything. So that's why I'm going to circle back around with them, because if we're not going to use that, we want to, recapture that money and just put it back into CPC if he doesn't see anybody moving forward with that. So I'll keep you updated with them. I haven't had a chance to reach out to him, but I will do that and find out where we're at with that program.
Thanks.
Yeah. And then the middle piece is always just where we are with our revenue collections. Everything it looks fine there. We've collected $1.5 million to date. The state revenue was 540. We got our regular state revenue, and then they had additional funding or additional revenues that they dispersed to the communities. So we got a little bit more than what we were anticipating on our regular state revenue. They had a little bit of a surplus when they closed out, so they gave those to the communities. But that's helped with our revenues for the year, so we'll do well there. And then the last portion is like our balance sheet and where we are, what our balances are. So at this point, our undesignated fund balance is $2.8 million in there, which is nice to see, again, in case a larger project comes in to play. And then just the bottom pieces are those 10%, but I think we've spoke before what we do, and we'll talk about this when we go into our fiscal 23 budget, is we put the 10% into those buckets and then we pull them out to pay the debt on any of the projects. And that's just been the CPC's general practice of doing that every year since we've been having debt on these, is put the 10% in, but then use the 10% to pay down the debt. So we'll see that when we get into the fiscal 23 budget. But any questions on where we are to date? Everything's, we're looking good with CPC.
Darlene, just for clarification purposes on I know that the 650, however much, was transferred over from the Affordable Housing Stabilization Fund into be managed with the funds from the CPC.
635, yep.
635. Obviously, that portion of it, there'll be no debt, interest, or payments that we'll be seeing in the future because it was a transfer from a fund rather than funds coming from the CPC.
Correct.
Okay,
so we used $600,000 came from the CPC reserve, and then the 635 came from the stabilization. So there's no debt. There will be no debt on that. So we didn't have to. We're not going out to do any borrowing for that project at all.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That answers my question.
Yep. And then if we want to just talk, I don't know if Linda wants to just talk about where we are. I can go in and just talk where we are for the going into fiscal 23. I think Paul had presented, I do have a PowerPoint, Paul's presentation, if we want to.
Let me.
No, you're doing a great job, so keep on going.
Okay, you stop me at any moment if I'm saying anything wrong. I mean, I just want to make it, it's CPC. I feel as they do a great job with working with other board member, other committees, working with David Hedges in this. They do a lot cost sharing like that to get these projects done, and we've done that a lot they've done them with playgrounds and with, and things like that. So I just want to commend them for working with other departments to get a lot of these projects done and helping these other committees financially get these projects completed. So it's, yeah, so this is our fiscal 23. So in the 10% buckets, we'll be putting $145,000 into each of the preservation, open space, housing, and then the historic. And then we'll be doing, and this is kind of for the debt piece, but if you go up a few slides, I think, because that's actually the debt, but if you, keep going up to the top. Yes. So this is what we're seeing. We're doing the 145 for the 10%. We'll be doing 250 for the reserve. And then we'll have to pay for these are what our debt payments are: the Sheehan Farm, the Varney Park, Roberts Field, Chelmsford Woods, the turf, and then the Warren Pole project. So our debt for fiscal 23 is the $496,421. We will then pull 145 out of those accounts. And then there is 61,000, I think if you go up to the next, that's what we're expecting for budget, but then, and then, so we'll be taking 145, then we'll take 61,421 from the reserve, and that'll cover that debt payment. And then we do the $50,000 for any administrative expenses that come, small little projects that need to be done, or any, we pay our the CPC dues and things like that out of that account. Any questions on where we'll be? And this is right here is where we're predicting about 1.3 million, 1.36 for under the CPC tax. Estimated revenue from the match will be the 425. So there's the 1.785 that we should be getting in revenues for fiscal 2023.
Any questions? All right. Seeing none. Next on our agenda is the run through of the warrant articles concerning Community Preservation Fund projects, Articles 25 through 37. With us this evening, again, we have Linda Prescott from the Community Preservation Committee, and then we have people that will certainly be able to speak on certain portions of these funded projects. So the first one that we come to is 25, which is the Community Preservation Fund for the Varney Playground.
Okay, DPW has asked, the parks and playgrounds have asked for an increase of $200,000 to put towards what they already have for the Varney Playground. The reason being is that COVID kind of, stalls everything, and prices have gone up tremendously. So they've asked for another $200,000. The playground will be brought up to handicap standards. The equipment there is just falling apart, splinters. It's time that it needs to be upgraded, replaced, and meet, current ADA standards. I think Gary may have a picture of what it will look like.
And I think with us this evening, we also have Steve Callahan on here.
Okay.
We got a number of pictures that were sent over, and we just stop the share for this moment and bring that up. Okay.
Thank you. Hi, folks. Steve Callahan from Chelmsford DPW. I'm the playground coordinator for the town. I if you could go down to slide 3, Jim, that would be great. So on top of the age of the playground, if you look at this aerial of the playground in Farney, if you notice right down at the water line at the bottom of the picture, you can see how the beach actually jets out into the water a little bit. And that is actually the erosion that's coming off, we'll call it third base area of the baseball field. It's coming off, running down into the playground area. That my first year I started working here, what we did, we got a bunch of landscaping wattles, and we sort of coerced the water around the playground. But if you're familiar with Barney, you know that there's a rock wall there between the playground and just where the beach starts. And it's being eroded, yeah, right in that area. It's being compromised at this point. So on top of a playground that's 22 years old, we also have a drainage, an erosion issue that we have to address. So so that was one of the things I wanted everyone to understand. Now, if you go to slide 4, what went out on Facebook recently was something similar to this. It didn't have any of the pictures, but what it did not have is the 2 swing sets that we're going to recycle. And you can, if you go to 5 and 6, you can see the 2 of them. So those 2 pictures were not in because they're from a different vendor. They're already there. We're going to pop them out of the ground when we do the demo. We're hopefully going to be able to put them back in. So what went out on Facebook recently was not accurate. It was, you know, the swings weren't in that picture. So that was some of the issues that went on. Some of the opposition that was on Facebook have actually joined in with us we had a meeting on Tuesday. We talked to the vendor, which is O'Brien and Sons, and we're going to tweak all the gear and look at potentially having a phase 2. So we're looking at having, when we do the demo, we're going to fix the erosion. We're going to get the ADA component put in there. We hired an engineering firm to check the boxes on the erosion, the ADA, and hopefully we can do a plan B that would make everyone happy. Folks who potentially want to do a plan B, what was I going to say? They, you know, they talked about raising money and things like that, so we could look at that. So I don't know what else you guys want to hear, but any comments, questions?
Just briefly. So you will look at for the phase 2 discussion, I guess, if you will. Are they envisioning something similar to what happened with Friendship Park, but later in the process, if you will, coming forward and doing a second round of fundraising, much like what was done initially at Friendship? Is that what they discussed?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because this just happened. We were ready to, you know, we had basically signed a contract with O'Brien and Sons, and these folks came forward, and so this is what they're saying, that they potentially will do some fundraising. So I'm not sure how aggressive they'll do it or not, but I mean, I can't answer that, Jim. I'm sorry.
That's fine. I was just curious if you.
Yeah, Jim, Gary, I have 2 comments I'd like to add. Sure. Steve gave you the input of the 2 swing sets. Just to let you know, I am also a CPC member, and those 2 swing sets were changed some years ago, not too long ago, when Nick Pali was the playground coordinator through CPC funds with us. So that's one of the reasons why they are being reused. We are not people that will get rid of something that's not that old just to replace it with something new. So they will be pulled out and put back in. And the only other thing I can add to your comment or your question to Steve is, it kind of looks that way to me, based on the meeting we had, that's where they're hopefully heading. I think what's going to happen is if they can maybe get a couple of small things added to the phase 1 and some changes that would give them a little bit of what was there, meaning they wanted some zones where kids could sort of hide out like a hide and seek type thing, which this one didn't seem to offer as much. I think that might be the adjustment for the phase one. And then I really believe that they want to put their own twist on it and do a phase two, or at least fundraise for phase two. And they've even talked about volunteerism. So hopefully that will come out of this. But the 200,000 is basically for what Steve had said. It's for erosion control. It's for up on cost. It's for a little more put in place than chips. And that's basically it.
Okay.
Gary, can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's been a long time since I've been a playground participant.
Yeah.
Shall we say?
Go then.
Hey, we've done it. You know, we've done it with you. Yeah.
So the wooden structure, how much space does the current wooden structure take up? And where is it on the map here?
Well, you're looking at the dock area that comes in at the top with a ramp coming in. He's circling around the whole thing. The swings are on the offset. There's a couple of early childhood pieces that are separated from that, but it's really one big long wooden structure that has a lot of features to it. And we're kind of giving you that in a different way with the new plastics and metal, which is what is going on today. The wood fibers have gotten, the wood is getting very expensive as well if you try to recreate it in that. And that's one of the reasons why. And then secondly, I believe they're coming closer to speed, but most of them had a harder time meeting the ADA codes at the time.
Yeah.
And just for my own edification here, to orient myself, on this plan you're seeing now, where is the beach and the baseball field in relation to this?
You can see on the left-hand side would be where the beach is.
Okay.
So the bottom to the right would be where we're gonna have a ramp come in, some kind of way to come in. The light blue is poured in place, which gives us the unitary surface, much like Friendship Park has, and that gives us that helps people, and obviously people in wheelchairs. And the rest, what isn't blue will be the what they call engineered wood fiber, but basically it's wood chips that are clean. So where it's not blue will be chips.
Okay. And is there any grading that's going to be done for the path in for ADA compliance? I'm imagining there has to be.
Yeah, Jim. So what we're going to do is we've actually hired a engineering team to give us a solution for the erosion and to give us a solution for the ADA, specifically for that ramp you're looking at right there, to connect that to the playground.
Okay.
We don't know. Maybe the erosion will be a mechanical issue fixed with a pipe going. We don't know exactly what solution they're going to come up with at this point.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that's a tough hill.
It is.
Good for sledding further up, though.
Not my department.
Hey, you know. All right. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you, Steve, very much. Thank you, Gary. Linda, we're still on. Let me stop this share.
We're here.
And we're going to go to share. Okay. Article 26 regarding the center school playground equipment.
The center school desperately needs to have not only new equipment, but they also need to have a drainage issue addressed. And we are working that we appropriated money for the project. I think it's $82,000, but we also are working with the PTO, they are fundraising money to do this big project. And I think probably the person to talk to is Steve. Because it was,
Yeah, so the Center School PTO raised $50,000 for this playground. The playground itself, once again, it's sort of the same setup as Bonnie. We have an erosion issue. There's big gullies. If you go behind Center School, there's gullies and stuff going down, running off the back of the school pavement into the woods. And so we're going to try to get this erosion issue gone and put a new playground in. The playground is about the same vintage as Bonnie. I think it's 22 or 23 years old. Unfortunately, it is in right around the 50-foot buffer, wetland buffer. So we looked at a couple of different locations, and we're going to move it right out of that area. We're going to move it up closer to the school. And that way, it'll be, for lots of different reasons, it'll work out better for the kids and for safety. So the 82,000 was to fix the erosion problems. We did have to go to conservation and speak to we brought David actually Kuntz down there. He's the conservation agent, and the school department threw in a huge amount of money too. So the school department really wants this playground going in. We're going to also check the box with the ADA. We're going to put some port in place and some of the playground equipment will actually have ramps. If you're familiar with Roberts Field, we had enough room to put some rampage in so someone in a wheelchair can get up and go from one layer to another, get up into the equipment.
Okay. Any questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you. We'll go right along to Article 27, the outdoor fitness equipment at Wilson and Chelmsford Streets.
okay. This is outdoor equipment. It's one of those facilities where you can, stop after work, do a 50-minute workout, just go from piece to piece to piece and be on your way. Lisa Maroney was able to secure $50,000 from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we're going to match that with a $135,000 request to put the whole piece in. It is now going to be located on the park at the corner of Wilson and Chelmsford Street. See in the little corner right there. It's open 24 hours a day. It will have lighting, and I don't know if Steve wants to or Gary wants to address the technical part of it. Are they there?
Yeah. Hello. Basically, what we are doing is we're cutting out a corner of the outfield that's used for very young children, so we don't expect balls will get that far. It will have an opening on basically on the side of the Chelmsford Housing Authority to the back end of Town Hall, so that there'll be no access for the kids from the anywhere near the street side or adults, whoever they're using it. Very simple. From if you look back at the drawing, it's a very simple and as Linda stated, the whole idea of this is for someone to be able to do a 15 or 20-minute workout, get their cardio and move on. It's very simple to use. The ones that have gone in are getting quite a bit of use. And after the day was long, we looked at about 4 or 5 different locations, and this ended up being the best one all around for everybody.
Okay. Any questions? I think we talked when Paul, when you gave this presentation a couple weeks ago about this and how we don't expect any, as Gary said, softballs heading that way.
No, it's too far for the little ones to go, and
Of course.
and again, this is sort of the adult outdoor fitness park, which is a good opportunity, and it has the close proximity to the rail trail as well as the high flow of circulation of traffic in that part of the center, coming out of the center from Wilson and Chelmsford Streets.
Any questions? Seeing none. Article 27. No, I'm sorry. That's the one we just did. Article 28, the McKay Public Library HVAC system.
This was a surprise to the CPC that McKay does not have a centralized HVAC system. So this year they have requested $150,000 to install a system. It will have a pad, it will have an air handler. It will help keep the environment in the library safe. You know, it will have a high volume of air passing through. And it also has the extra benefit of preserving the structure and the books within the structure. So I don't know, that's what's going to happen with it. So basically it's a capital improvement to a building that surprised me did not have central air.
I guess my question is for Becky, and I know you're still on, and you were staying on for this. As far as McKay is concerned, how will this affect access to that library? That's been relatively down the last couple of years, and do you look at there's going to be an increased usage of McKay once this is installed?
You know, absolutely. I mean, you know, we have people who have been, you know, really upset that we haven't had it open, and you know, we've had a history in the past where we've had budget cuts and had to cut back on hours, and I think there's a trust within the North Chelmsford community that, you know, they were waiting for us to figure it out, making sure that it was going to be safe, and you know, and now that we've, you know, put the effort and the research into it, that now they're going to be excited about it reopening. And we have a lot of ideas about how, you know, just a sort of opening day collection and trying to you know, sort of build momentum and interest again, and you know, really sort of like revitalize the services there too. And we also talked with Paul and with people at the North Town Hall and Senior Center about just in general wanting to increase services to North Chelmsford by making use of some of the larger spaces that we can do large scale programs in, like the North Town Hall or the Senior Center. But the sort of just the core of the library services of being able to, you know, come in with your kids and check out books and you know, grab your materials and you know, talk with your community members. I mean, that's we're going to try to restore that.
No, a big thing was probably with my daughter when she's a little younger was the readings and the musical performances that were outside.
Yes,
outside.
Which we will have those this summer, and we did have a few last year, but we're going to have the full slate of the programs on the lawn this summer. So, and we do have the pop-up library going over there in the meantime. So we're providing alternative services, you know, to keep things going until we can actually get the building back in shape.
Excellent. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you. Next article is, speaking of North Town Hall, the North Town Hall HVAC system.
Okay, North Town Hall and the Center Town Hall basically have the same updates going along, and they need improvement in their HVAC system to provide a safe environment. They need to have a larger airflow in the building. So this is what the two articles are about. I think this is a Gary. If Gary has any comments.
Yes, basically, we have hired a consultant that had looked at the schools a year ago and generated pretty much all the work we did a year ago during the heat of COVID on the school side. And then we brought them back in to look at the town side. And in doing that, these two projects came up with the fact that they do have ventilation systems and they do have some stuff that's quite adequate. And then they're falling down in a couple of areas. And part of the reasons for that simply too are the fact that the structures, of course, are registered as historic, and tearing up things and putting holes in places is not something you want to do. But it looks like we'll be able to do some of this work up in the upper levels of both of those buildings and not cause any issues to the look or change the look of the building, and get these systems in it so that they will have definitely enough air volume and air flow to match what's needed under today's standards.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? All right, seeing none. That brings us to the end of the Community Preservation Fund articles. It's a typo on the agenda. There are not 37, so we appreciate everyone that came and spoke tonight regarding those and the work that's been put in by your committee, Linda, and also by the DPW in helping work with these projects. So thank you all, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least on the agenda this evening, we have the review of the fiscal year 23 budget, the Chelmsford Public School District. And with us this evening, we have Dr. Jay Lang, the superintendent. We also have Joanna M. Johnson-Collins, the business manager. And I'll just go ahead and share your presentation.
Great. Thank you, Jim, and members of the Finance Committee. Happy to be here tonight with Joanna, our business administrator, to walk through our fiscal 23, what was my recommended budget to the school committee. And then the school committee deliberated on the budget the first week in March. We went, as we typically do, page by page through the budget and review the different recommendations and how it was structured and whatnot. And happy to walk you through a few of the items tonight. Jim, if you don't mind, maybe moving forward to page 7. We had reviewed the various charts around comparable districts for finances and students and performance and whatnot at our tri-board meeting in December. So if we just start at the bottom of page 7, I'll just walk you through some of the overarching highlights of the budget for this coming year, and then certainly answer any questions you may have. So our budget for fiscal 23 does increase by $2.5 million. That's a number that the town manager and I have worked on. So the budget would be going from 65 to 67.5 million. What is different in our budget from some of the other town budgets is that we actually do put aside funding for raises and negotiations, excuse me, right in our budget, because we don't typically come back to a town meeting like some of the other departments do after they settle contracts. So when we get there, I'll point that out to you. But we have taken into consideration all of the step and lane changes that typically happen from year to year. Again, all of our contracts, except for our custodians, end on June 30th. So we're actually beginning negotiations with our teachers and our support staff next Monday. We recently reached an agreement with our Administrators Association, so we settled and ratified that contract. So that one we have behind us. But we have 2 of our bigger contracts that we're going to be beginning to negotiate again, as I indicated on Monday. For the staff that we know also who are going to be retiring at the end of the year, we actually didn't have too many this year, but the ones we do know that are going to be leaving us, we have already adjusted the salaries for the incoming individuals in the budget. And we always assume Master Step 3 as an average new salary. So if someone did retire, say at Step 10 or 11, I have already taken that deduction in the document itself, and you'll see those positions budgeted at Step 3. It's just an average. Some are going to come in lower, some are going to come higher, but we found that to be a pretty good budgetary number. So our fiscal 23 budget itself includes all of the services and programs that we're currently operating in fiscal 22. And then we did increase programming in a couple of specific areas, largely related to special education and supports for some of our struggling students. So the first bullet that you see on this page, as a district, one of the areas that we've talked about for a few years where we don't have any specific district programming on is really a language-based program. And we work very heavily with the students in the elementary schools at this point to really try to diagnose any type of extra reading needs they may have, dyslexia, or things along those lines. And we don't have any specific targeted programming in the district other than some of our interventionists and reading teachers and things like that that would be working with students. And we have a good cohort of students who have some identified needs that we'd like to begin to develop some programming for at the middle school level. This would be very similar to, say, our autism program that we have at the Byam and the Parker and then the high school. We have our Strive program, our therapeutic program at the South Row that feeds up to McCarthy and then the high school. So this would be another facet of that programming. So that is targeting. We're going to go one grade level at a time. We're going to begin with 5th grade next year. And then we see that program growing to 6th, 7th, and 8th, following the students up through middle school. And obviously, we will be increasing some staff over the next number of years to support that programming. At the high school next year, we have 2 additional special ed teachers being added for 2 specified or specific programs. One is the PAVE program, and then one is our STEP or transitional program back into the school. Our PAVE program is our life skills program, and we have an elementary classroom at Center. We then have 2 classrooms at McCarthy, and we have a number of students who are moving from McCarthy up to the high school next year. And the numbers in that particular program, it's supported by 1 teacher currently. We're going to be at 13 or 14 next year after the middle school students move up, which is a little too high. We would normally try to target 8 to 9 for that. So we did increase the special ed staffing at the high school. We've added an additional person in that PAVE program. And then the STEP program is our transitional program to help students who may have been either home or hospitalized for various reasons, coming back and reacclimating to the high school to get back into programming. So we did add a STEP teacher in that particular program. You are going to see a little bit of a theme with some of these ads. I think coming back from the pandemic, we certainly are seeing some significant needs among our student population at all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. We are still having a lot of families having difficulty accessing outside of the school, mental health services, counseling services. So that is something that in the schools we're trying to assist with and again, target some services. We currently have a half-time psychologist position, which floats between McCarthy and Parker Middle Schools, does a lot of testing, does some direct support to specific programs within the schools. And we are recommending and did act on that position moving up to full-time so that each school could have a dedicated psychologist to be working with those groups of students. And then the last kind of big ad, as I mentioned earlier, we have an incredible counseling group. We have full-time clinical psychologists in our schools, but our families are really having a very difficult time accessing resources outside of the school. There are long waiting lists for doctors and counselors and whatnot. And we would like to have, again, some targeted help and interventions for those families. So we're adding 3 social worker family counselor positions. We're in the process of advertising for those right now. One will be targeted towards the elementary level, one toward the middle, and one toward the high school. However, their assignments will be case driven. So if we happen to have more need at the middle school level, we can certainly shift someone to help out there. But we are looking to provide some extra supports for our families to help them get into some of the programming and services that they need and access that outside of the school day. There's also the component where if we have students in our schools who are receiving services and they have an outside provider, you need some type of a wraparound so that the school and the outside counselor know what is taking place. And these 3 individuals are going to help us facilitate that. So from a staffing standpoint, those are some additions to our budget for next year. We do have a couple of other increases in the budget that don't add FTEs, but just to be a little bit more competitive with some of our surrounding towns. Again, some of this is pandemic driven. We've had a very difficult time attracting and retaining substitute teachers, long-term teachers, nurses in particular are very difficult. And when we took a look at our daily rates that we pay those individuals, we just weren't even competing with some of the surrounding towns. So I did include funding to increase the daily rates or hourly rates for those individual positions in the budget. And I can show you where I did that when we get to that particular page. Jim, if you could move to page 9. Just a little note for tracking purposes. This will be the last year of the implementation of the 101 initiative. So next fall, all of our students in the district will receive a district issued computer. So everyone grades 5 through 12, they basically get the device, they keep it for 4 years. They then cycle out when they get from, say, middle school to high school, and they get a new device for those particular 4 years. This has been really helpful for us, particularly with kind of pandemic learning taking place. Every child already having their own device, they can have it at home, they can bring it back to school. And we've actually been utilizing our school choice funding for that. So it doesn't actually impact the local town budget, school budget. We've been using that as an offset to be able to do that. But we're really in a great place as far as technology is concerned and being able to support the different technology initiatives that we have. So kind of in summary for the budget for this year, those were a couple of the additional adds that we had. The base budget does increase by $2.5 million. That does include funding for our contract negotiations, which are going to be taking place next week. Obviously, we don't have final numbers to be able to share with you on that, but we do have a set aside within the budget for negotiations. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have or walk you through a couple of items in the budget if you'd like. The document itself is crafted as we have in previous years, where you have your summary level totals, your district level totals. This is all reported just in how we have to report it to DESE, but we've tried to keep a 3-year history for you of actuals and budget. And then on each individual page where we've actually had some kind of an adjustment in the budget, we've included notes just so that you can follow along on that. And let me give you an example of the page, so maybe take a look at it. Example. If you wanted to go to page 26 of the budget, that's where we have our increases, say, for those substitute positions that we were talking about. You can see I included a column of FY22 current rates, what we're paying, and then what we're recommending and ultimately did get approved by the school committee will be the new rates for next year, which are much more in line with our neighboring communities.
I'll get there. Adobe's taken over. Give me a second.
Oh, no, it's page 26.
Oh, I know.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Perfect. So like you'll just see like a little note section like that. And people do find that kind of helpful as they're reading through the document to see where some of those increases come. So we've kept up that trend well. And then at the very end of the budget book, we have the staff salary book, which crosswalks to the main document, which just lists all the FTEs in the budget. Dollar amounts, again, have been incorporated for contracts and steps and lanes and things along those lines. But we've kept the formatting similar to previous years. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's our request for next year, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Just noting, Dr. Lang, the new positions you've added, you'll see in the budget as the highlighted red and italicized.
Yeah, so anytime we do like a new addition, just to kind of flag it for people, we do it in red. Those are the two, the additional halftime clinical psychologists at the middle schools. And then I think right below it was the social workers at the schools. Yep, right there. Just so that you can see they stand out from the rest of the documents. All the black writing would be already positions we have in the district, but that would be where we would note to bring on those extra halftime positions.
Perfect. And then just the back, the appendix we start with.
Yeah, so the appendices, again, just more like for information, because different people will ask us from time to time. But the first one is our student enrollment summary. So that's our October 1st report and numbers in the district. We then we have a contract and a partnership with NESDEC, not NEASC, the group that does the accreditation, but NESDEC, who does like regional comparisons of school districts, and they come in and actually do enrollment projections for us. They were helpful when we were putting the MSBA application together a few years back, because SBA requires that you certify a formal projection. So we include the NESDEC report in that section as well. Some people, again, just like to kind of read it from year to year. And then the second appendices B is the listing of all of our different student clubs and activities at the high schools and the middle schools. We've kept the fee structure the same. So any child in middle school or high school that would like to participate in the club, if it's a paid club, would just pay $50 for the year, and that would cover their club fees, as well as they can avail themselves to extra transportation at the end of the day to get home from the clubs if they would like to. Joanna does a nice job on Appendix C of just listing all the different grants we receive in the district, and a little narrative about what each of the grants goes to and what it covers, just so that we can track our grant funding from year to year. And then lastly, Appendix C is just a listing of all of our revolving funds and other funds that we have with beginning of year expenditures anticipated for the year. This is where you would see like our food service revolving fund, various revolving funds, athletics, our turf field account, things along those lines.
So we're showing a deficit in the turf fields this year, or projected for next year rather, or this. I'm sorry, fiscal year 22. Is that related to less usage of the fields, or?
Yeah, overall the fund. I can ask Joanna to speak to that. Overall, the fund is projected to be favorable at the end of the year.
Okay.
Joanna, can you speak to the negative 42?
Sure. You're right, Jim. We didn't have a lot of revenue during the pandemic. So the cumulative balance of the fund will not be in deficit. But for 1 year, this year, when we make that payment, we're going to be a little bit in year, eating into the reserve a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any questions?
When's your transportation budget contract up? When do you have to renew?
Our regular ed transportation, the big buses, is actually up on June 30th, so the end of this year. So we recently went out to bid for a new contract, and I'm sure everyone's going to be surprised. There was one bidder for the contract. We only have really one transportation show in town. So North Reading was the only bidder for the contract. And we did execute a contract for 3 years with an optional 4th and 5th at the school committee's discretion, but we don't have to execute those until midway through the 3rd year. So we do have a new contract going into effect as of July 1, 2022, this coming July. It is again with North Reading for our big bus transportation. And we knew what the new rates were going to be right prior to recommending our budget. So we were able to include the new rates in the transportation section of the budget. So we've covered ourselves for 22.
Thank you.
All right. And just while we're talking about transportation and buses, we're going to be reaching out to the citizen petitioner regarding a potential tracking system for buses under the warrant article. I don't know if anyone's spoken to you about that, Dr. Lang, and the possibility of something like that. Do you have any comment on that?
I'm not fully prepared tonight to, kind of weigh the pros and the cons. Paul did send me over a copy of the petition when it was filed. I know it's going to go through the motions with town meeting. I've thought about actually reaching out to the proposer and just having a conversation ahead of time, because just operationally, the way it's worded, I'm not sure exactly what the select board could do with it. It seems to be more of a school committee issue than a select board issue. But aside from that, there are really just pros and cons to having that kind of a system. And there are some districts that do implement that. The technology would not be that significant to add cost-wise to our buses. The biggest issue comes into play is that parents typically get upset if their bus is either early or late, and it's the backup driver, it's a spare driver, because the regular bus driver is sick. Usually a parent gets in a good habit of, within 5 minutes or so, your bus driver and when they're going to get to that particular stop. but everyone gets upset if it's a backup driver and the regular driver's out sick because the person might just run the route a little differently or not be fully aware of the route, and that's what times go off. But 9 times out of 10, the backup driver is driving a different bus. So if the GPS system was in the primary bus, it's not going to help the family know where the child is supposed to be, because the backup bus is going to be sending a different signal. Every bus carries their own signal, and we would not be able to, on the fly, update any kind of a system to say, bus B is coming instead of bus A to expected to arrive at a particular time. I honestly don't even know what it would look like in the app that they make, because bus A with the primary driver is probably sitting in the lot, and bus B, came to be the backup bus to help out that particular day. And again, 9 times out of 10, that's what parents are upset about. So I don't know really that the GPS would help us that much. But it's, it's certainly always something to talk about. But again, it does have pros and cons.
Thank you for, I know you weren't prepared for that, but thank you for just.
Yeah, no problem.
That's fantastic. Do you have any other questions? All right. I'd like to thank you very much, you both, for being here this evening and presenting, and thank you for continuing to lead a very well-performing school district.
Oh, thank you very much. Just real quick, if you don't mind, do you need any information on that special ed reserve fund? That's a separate warrant article, or is that not tonight?
I can certainly pull that up.
I didn't know if you had any questions or if that was anything we had to speak to.
I know Paul spoke to it 2 weeks ago, and it seems pretty standard. It's just the enacting of the ability to have the special education fund. I don't know if you want to speak to how you plan to implement that in budgeting in future years. If you want to just briefly speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, and I'm sorry, I didn't know Paul had covered it. It really is more of a procedural vote at town meeting to establish the fund. We're looking at it as just an extra area where we could actually reserve some funding in the event of unforeseen special ed costs, in future years that we're not anticipating. Primarily a move-in during a particular year where we have to pay a tuition or a transportation or something along those lines. We have been handling all of those kind of unbudgetable figures by the use of the circuit breaker fund. However, if you've noticed over the last year or so, we actually can carry over less circuit breaker. We used to be able to carry over close to $3 or a little over $3 million, and we're down to like 2.3 to 2.5 this year. So as we can carry over less, I'd like to be able to have a reserve that's closer to 3 million. So that was the rationale. We'll obviously always kind of max out when we can first our circuit breaker fund, because it gives us a little bit more flexibility. It's really just within the purview of the school committee. We don't have to go to, say, a town meeting or a select board to be able to access the funds. However, if that number keeps going down with what we can carry over, I just would like the ability to be able to have kind of an extra savings account for some of those special ed costs. So that's the purpose of the article.
Okay. Now that I have it up, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. That's just the speed with which I know one thing that was pointed out, that this, unlike some other funds, would require a majority vote of not only the school committee but also the
Yeah, so once we put the funds in, the only way that we can actually take them out to expend them for a special ed purpose would be to have the school committee majority vote, and we'd have to have a select board majority vote. So that's why it just has like one extra step for us, why we would max out circuit breaker flexibility first and then go to that second. But I truly believe the school committee and the select board, if we had a special ed issue that had to be funded and we had the reserve fund there, I would not have a problem going to defend that type of an action.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us tonight.
So next on our agenda, we have reviewed the budget hearing and Springtown meeting warrant article schedule. So at this point, we have pretty much run through most everything. Paul, thank you for sending over the contact information for the citizen petition. I'll reach out and see if the citizen petition would like to speak just to that article we just spoke about briefly regarding the school bus tracking system before at the beginning of our meeting next week. But next week will be our evening for voting. So we have 30, no, not 37. We have 35 articles this year. But again, as has been pointed out previously, there are no zoning articles, which is nice, especially for a springtime meeting rather. So they're all really budget related or budget focused type of articles. And so I imagine that we should be able to go through those, review them, and get our votes together in short form. One change we usually make to the schedule, just for everyone watching, is that we have public comment both at the start of our meeting that evening and at the end of our meeting, so that people may weigh in prior to us making our recommendations that we will present to town meeting for their vote. So if anyone wants to come and speak, they can certainly speak prior. And if something does come up or we have a question during our deliberations, we have at times allowed people to speak if there is a pressing issue or if someone has not been able to speak at the public comment section prior to our running through the recommendations. Kathy, will you be there to make your motions? we had a stand-in for the special town meeting, so that's Eric did a fantastic.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll make sure I get my water jug prepared.
Yes, and just as a reminder, as presented does work. So with that, if there's any public comment, you can speak at this time. All right. Seeing none and hearing none. Press questions. I'm just running through quickly the meeting room. I'm not seeing any press. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
In a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and good weekend, and we'll see everybody here next week.
Thank you.